The worst part wasn't the kiss. It wasn't even the fact that she did it right in front of me. It was the laugh after. That laugh, loud, sharp, unapologetic, bounced around the room while everyone else just stared at me like I was the one ruining the mood. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat locked up. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down to hide them. She didn't even notice. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. Faye had just kissed another man. On a dare, she said. In the middle of our own living room. In front of 10 people who'd eaten food I cooked, drank wine I bought, and sat on furniture I paid off over 18 months. And when she saw my face, she rolled her eyes and said, "Curtis, don't be weird. It's just a stupid game." Like that would fix it. Like that would put my ribs back in place after they shattered inward. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I yell? Push him? Push her? Do something? But that's not who I am. I'm the guy who internalizes, who spirals quietly in his own head, who convinces himself he's overreacting until it's way too late. And it was already too late. I just didn't know how far gone things really were. See, that moment, that dumb little truth or dare moment that was supposed to be all in good fun, it wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. It was a reveal. A leak in the ceiling I'd ignored for too long, now crashing down in one giant flood. And when I looked around the room at the faces of our so-called friends, no one looked surprised. Not one. That was the real punch in the gut. They knew. They'd seen this show before. Maybe not the kiss, but the closeness. The way she clung to Derek's arm at game nights. The secret smirks. The inside jokes they shared that I was never part of. How long had I been the joke? I don't remember much of the rest of the night. I know I went to bed early. I pretended to have a headache, which wasn't really a lie. I stared at the ceiling in the dark while I heard her laughing downstairs, still entertaining them like nothing happened. Like her husband wasn't upstairs rethinking every moment of their marriage. And the next morning, she had the audacity to act confused. Said I was being overly sensitive. Said, "You know it didn't mean anything." And then, my personal favorite, "You're being dramatic." Everyone else was fine with it. Everyone else. I wasn't everyone else. I was her husband. At least, I thought I was. So you know what I did? Nothing. For 2 whole days. I went to work like normal. Ate cereal like normal. Slept, or tried to, like normal. And during that time, I made a decision. She wanted to play games? Fine. But I'd write the final round. And when she came home from work that Friday, the keys didn't work. The lights were off. Her bags were on the porch. Neatly packed. No note. Just her life in boxes, waiting silently for her to understand what she'd done. When she knocked, I opened the door. Didn't say a word. Just handed her the last thing she left behind. Her wedding ring, sitting in a little dish with a label that said, "Game over." She stared at it like it was cursed. And then, she laughed again. But this time, there was panic underneath. She stood there in that wrinkled navy pantsuit, holding her phone like it was a weapon and glaring at the door like I'd committed some unspeakable act of war. For 10 seconds, she didn't speak. Just stood there on the porch, stunned. Then she let out this sharp laugh, the same fake one she always used when she was caught doing something wrong, but didn't want to admit it. I hated that laugh more than anything in the world. "Curtis, open the door." "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're actually being insane right now." She rattled the doorknob again, like maybe it would magically open if she said the right combination of insults. But the locks were changed, the alarm system reset, and the garage opener deactivated. I wasn't trying to punish her. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I just couldn't let her inside anymore. Not into this house. Not into my life. Not after the look she gave Derek that night. Like he was the one holding her world together, not me. I stayed quiet behind the door, listening to her cycle through the emotions like she was performing on a stage. First came the fake confidence, then anger, then confusion. Then, finally, desperation. "You're not even going to talk to me?" she yelled. "You think this is normal behavior? Because I played a game? Are you serious right now, Curtis?" I nearly opened the door. Nearly. But I caught myself. I reminded myself of all the other times I let her talk her way out of things. When I found a text thread with Derek full of "haha wish you were here" messages at 1 a.m. When she came home with a hickey and blamed it on a curling iron. When she told me I needed therapy because I asked why she never wore her ring anymore. Every single time I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and every single time, I was the one left feeling small. So I stood there in the hallway, hands in my pockets, back pressed against the wall like a coward, listening to the woman I once promised everything to lose her mind on my doorstep. But there was something peaceful about it. Not revenge, not satisfaction, just peace. Like I was finally stepping out of a storm I'd been calling weather. She eventually left, or so I thought. An hour later, I caught her trying to climb in through the side window. No joke. She'd taken off her heels and was hoisting herself up onto the trash bin like some deranged action movie star in Business Casual. When I flicked on the porch light and stepped outside, she froze mid-motion, her knee on the window ledge, caught like a kid sneaking back into a dorm. "Faye," I said calmly. "Get down." She stared at me, hair tangled, mascara smudged, like I was the stranger. "You're not even going to let me explain?" she shouted, voice cracking. "It was nothing. It was fun. You're blowing this out of proportion. You kissed him. It was part of the game. You kissed him like I wasn't there." That shut her up. She slid off the bin, slowly, her shoes in one hand, the other holding on to whatever scraps of pride she had left. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I just felt done. You know that kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep? That was me. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wasn't trying to make her jealous. I didn't want her to fall to her knees and beg. I just wanted her gone. She stood in the driveway, staring at the house like she was trying to memorize it. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're going to regret this. You always overreact, and then you realize you were wrong." Maybe she was right. Maybe I would regret it. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel wrong. I felt free. She walked away, slowly, her bags untouched on the porch, expecting me to call out. But I didn't. And that silence? It said more than I ever could. 3 days. That's how long the silence lasted. I thought that would be it. I truly believed she'd get the message, take her bags, and move on with her glamorous life full of flirty game nights and attention-starved coworkers. But no, Faye doesn't lose. Not when she's humiliated. Not when her pride is on the line. I should have expected her next move, but I didn't. Because nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I looked through the peephole that evening. It was her, of course, standing on the porch again. But this time she brought him. Derek, the man she kissed. The man whose name I heard more than my own for the past 6 months. The man who leaned on our countertops and drank out of our glasses and looked me in the eye like I was just the temporary tenant in my own marriage. They stood there like a united front. Him with that smug, "We're just here to be reasonable" posture, and her, arms folded, face full of fake concern. She even wore that stupid soft pink sweater I once told her made her look like a cupcake. She used to laugh when I said that. Now she wore it like armor. I didn't open the door. Instead, I flicked on the porch light again, like I was shooing raccoons off my property. "Curtis," she called out. Her voice was calm, trained, like she'd practiced what she was going to say in the car. "I brought Derek because I figured it would be easier for you to hear the truth from both of us. We want to clear the air." "We." God, that word made my stomach twist. "We," I muttered to myself. I leaned closer to the peephole, watching Derek shift uncomfortably, like he didn't expect me to actually ignore them. He looked around the porch, probably realizing that this wasn't the kind of house where people welcomed awkward conversations with open arms and herbal tea. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she continued. "It got out of hand. The kiss, it wasn't planned. But we realized something after." My breath caught. "Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. We realized we have a connection." And there it was, like a knife twisted slowly between my ribs. They came to justify it, not to apologize, not to ask for forgiveness, but to normalize the betrayal, wrap it in mature, logical language, and feed it to me like medicine. I didn't scream. I didn't open the door and demand answers. I just walked into the kitchen, turned on the kettle, and waited for the knock to fade. But she wasn't finished. "We didn't want to hurt you," she said again, louder this time. "But you've shut me out, Curtis. This isn't healthy. Maybe you should talk to someone. I want to coexist peacefully." I laughed. Actually laughed, alone in the kitchen, while pouring boiling water into a chipped mug that still had both our initials on it. Coexist peacefully? Like we were business partners ending a merger? Like I hadn't spent 3 years watching her slowly erase me from the life we built? A few minutes later, I heard them walking away, her voice trailing off, his shoes crunching over gravel. Then silence again. But I couldn't relax. Because that wasn't the end. I could feel it. The way a dog senses a storm before it hits. I checked my phone, 5 missed calls from her. 3 texts. The last one said, "If you're going to act like a child, I'll do what I have to do. Don't make this harder." What did that mean? That night, I barely slept. I kept checking the front door, the locks, the windows. Every creak in the hallway made my heart pound. Not because I was afraid of her physically, but because I knew what people like her could do when you stopped playing their game. When you took back control. The next morning, I got an email from my landlord. "Hi Curtis, we received a message from your wife about the lease. She mentioned you're separating and asked if we can begin transferring the rental agreement into her name. Can you confirm this? She was trying to take the house. She kissed another man in front of me, laughed when I broke down, and now she wanted to remove me from the lease. Like I was the one who needed to go. And that was when I knew. She wasn't just playing a game anymore. She was at war." I didn't respond to the landlord's email. I sat there staring at it for nearly an hour, trying to process how bold you have to be to betray someone and then try to evict them from their own home like you're doing them a favor. The audacity made my head spin. I hadn't even filed anything yet. No legal separation, no property split, no formal talk. But there she was, already trying to shift the lease into her name, like she'd just won me in a card game and was trading me in for chips. What stunned me more than anything was how calm she acted through it all. Like this was just some inconvenience she had to clear up before brunch. No shame, no guilt, just strategy. She was treating me like a clerical error. I finally wrote back to the landlord, short and simple. "There's been a misunderstanding. Please do not make any changes. She has no authority to request that." Then I blocked Faye's number. She'd already tried calling again that morning, and when I didn't answer, she left a voicemail, chipper, upbeat, like we were coworkers handling a scheduling mix-up. "Hey Curtis, just wanted to check if you got my message. I thought it'd be easier for everyone if I took over the lease, since you're obviously overwhelmed right now. No pressure, just trying to keep things smooth. Let me know, okay?" Overwhelmed? I wasn't overwhelmed. I was disgusted. But I stayed quiet. I didn't respond. And that silence clearly started getting to her, because 2 days later, I came home from work to find one of her friends, the one with the wine addiction and the Instagram quotes about main character energy, sitting in her SUV in front of my house. She got out the moment I pulled in and walked toward me like we were about to have a civil chat. I didn't even get the chance to turn off the ignition. "She's spiraling," the friend said. "You really scared her. She didn't think you'd actually go nuclear." Go nuclear? I didn't yell. I didn't shame her online. I didn't tell her family. I changed the locks and boxed up her things. That was all. But to them, to her little social circle of self-proclaimed alpha females and wannabe life coaches, the most terrifying thing I could have done was leave the table mid-game. That wasn't in their script. I was supposed to break down. I was supposed to beg. The friend kept talking, something about rebuilding mutual trust and compassionate cohabitation. All nonsense words she probably picked up from a podcast. I just nodded and said I had somewhere to be. And as I shut the door in her face, I caught a glimpse of something in the back seat of her SUV. A suitcase. Faye's suitcase. She wasn't trying to talk. She was trying to move back in. Without permission. Without a conversation. Like nothing had happened. That's when I realized. She was going to keep pushing, keep twisting reality, until I snapped. Because if I snapped, she'd have control again. She could paint me as unstable, vengeful, petty. That's what this was about. But I wasn't going to give her that. I'd play the long game now. And she wouldn't even see it coming. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. Those feelings were already burned to ash. But because my mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that suitcase. Saw her trying to sneak her way back into the house through friends, manipulation, fake kindness. And for what? Because I embarrassed her by not playing the idiot anymore? Because I left the game on my own terms? No. That night, something shifted in me. I stopped waiting for her to feel guilty. I stopped hoping she'd break down and admit what really happened between her and Derek. I didn't need her tears. I needed the truth. And if she wasn't going to hand it to me, I'd take it myself. The next morning, I bought a second phone. Nothing fancy. Just a burner with a cheap plan and a good mic. I didn't have some grand revenge plan. This wasn't about ruining her. I just needed to hear it. I needed confirmation that I wasn't crazy. That the man she swore was just a harmless flirt had been more than that long before the game night kiss. I started with her social media. Public stuff. I noticed little things. places she'd been that she never told me about. Like a wine bar across town where she tagged her coworkers on a Wednesday, I remember her claiming to work late. I went deeper. Her friend Clara had posted a photo months ago, just a group selfie, but in the background, clear as day, Faye and Derek sitting at the corner of the bar. Too close, smiling at each other like they were the only two people in the room. She wasn't even trying to hide it. I felt sick. Not because I hadn't seen it before, but because I had, and let her talk me out of trusting myself. 2 days later, I sent her a text from the burner number, posed as someone anonymous. Said I had info Curtis might want, and she needed to be careful. Waited 3 minutes. She called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. Then I watched. She deleted 3 photos off Instagram in the next hour. One of them was a shot of her and Derek at a Halloween party I wasn't invited to. She told me it was girls only. I remembered because I spent that night watching a documentary and falling asleep on the couch at 9 p.m., thinking I was just being boring and letting her live her life. The next part? It happened faster than I expected. She showed up to my office. No warning. No shame. Just walked right in like we were still married, and I was still the guy who let her get away with everything. She wore that same cupcake pink sweater, like she was playing the innocent card all over again. Curtis, I need to talk to you. Alone. I excused myself and followed her outside. She didn't waste time. Someone's messing with me, she said. I don't know if it's you or someone trying to stir things up, but if this is your way of getting back at me, you need to stop. This isn't funny. I stared at her, watched her twitch slightly when I didn't respond. She wasn't afraid someone was playing a prank. She was afraid someone knew the truth. I didn't say anything, just tilted my head and asked, "What exactly do you think they know?" Her eyes narrowed. Her voice dropped. You think I wanted things to go this way? I didn't mean for it to happen. You pushed me out, Curtis. You pulled away for months, and I needed connection. There it was. The first real confession. Not complete, not detailed, but a fracture in her perfect story. You needed connection, I repeated. So you kissed him. So you tried to kick me out of the house. So you brought him to my door and told me it was mutual. She didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. She just stood there, finally realizing I wasn't the same soft, fumbling idiot she could steamroll anymore. And then she said something I will never forget. You don't know everything. And if you did, you wouldn't be so smug. I asked her what she meant, but she just walked away. And now? Now I had to find out what she meant. Because if she was hiding something worse than I already knew, I needed to uncover it before it destroyed me completely. I couldn't shake what she said. You don't know everything. And if you did, you wouldn't be so smug. That line crawled under my skin and nested there, playing on repeat no matter how much I tried to ignore it. It wasn't just a defensive jab, it was a warning. And knowing Faye, it meant something real. She always knew where the cracks were and how to push just hard enough to make them split wide open. So I stopped waiting for the truth to come to me. That night, I opened the old laptop she used to use before she got her sleek new work-issued MacBook. She always said it was too slow to bother wiping, and left it gathering dust in the closet. But it still booted up. And unlike her phone, it didn't have a fingerprint lock or a timed logout. It was practically begging me to open it. What I found wasn't immediate. I had to comb through cluttered folders with names like Budget 2021 and Team Goals. Boring stuff, probably meant to deter curiosity. But then I opened a folder buried inside another one titled simply _archive. Inside, I found screenshots. Dozens. Messages between her and Derek. Some from before the kiss at our house. Some dated months before. Back when I was still rubbing her feet after work. Still cooking dinner for 2. Still thinking we had a chance. They weren't just flirty messages. They were emotional. Her. I feel like I can actually breathe around you. Him. I keep thinking about that night we stayed late after the mixer. The way you looked at me. Her. I dream about it sometimes. And when I wake up next to him, I feel so empty. My name wasn't even in the messages. I was just a shadow in the background of her complaints. A prop in her life. Something to compare Derek's spark to. Something dull, safe, disposable. But then I saw something that hit me harder than all the rest. A save draft. An email. Addressed to HR. Subject line. Formal complaint regarding spousal harassment. The body of the message was half finished, but the gist was clear. She was planning to tell her employer I was emotionally unstable. That I'd been showing up at her office unannounced. That I was interfering with her work relationships and creating an unsafe dynamic at home. She'd saved it as a draft. Probably hadn't needed to send it yet, but it was there, ready. She wasn't just trying to win the breakup. She was setting up a way to crush me if I didn't go quietly. The next morning, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun rise over our quiet street. Birds chirping, sprinklers going off. The kind of morning that should have felt peaceful. But instead, I felt hollow. And I realized something then. This wasn't about a marriage ending anymore. It was about survival, reputation, identity. She had been laying the groundwork to flip the entire story. And if I didn't act fast, I'd be the villain in a narrative I never even agreed to be part of. So I printed everything. Every screenshot. Every message. Even the draft. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I couldn't keep playing defense. I had to protect myself. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my old friend Nathan, who now worked as a paralegal for a family law firm 2 towns over. We hadn't kept in close touch, but I remembered him telling me once, if you ever get screwed over, don't wait for it to get worse. Build your record early. When I told him what was happening, he didn't sound surprised, just disappointed. Curtis, he said, this isn't a breakup. This is a chess match, and you're 2 moves behind. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. I had to catch up, fast, because Faye hadn't just betrayed me. She was preparing to erase me. I didn't recognize the man I was becoming. That used to scare me. But now it felt like the only way forward. I was done being the passive husband. The quiet guy who waited for people to do the right thing. The man who forgave too fast and spoke too slow. That man had been dismantled piece by piece by a woman who'd studied my silence like a language, then used it against me. Nathan called me the next morning with a plan. We wouldn't confront her. We wouldn't go public. We wouldn't scream or send angry texts she could twist into abuse. Instead, we'd collect. Quietly. Calmly. The way you document a storm before it floods your house. Because insurance only believes you if you've got proof. So I did exactly that. I dug deeper. I reached out to Clara, the friend who posted that bar selfie months ago. The one where Faye and Derek looked like they were already a couple. Clara and I had always had a weird relationship. She never liked me much, mostly because I was too sensitive and too observant. She once told me I looked at people too hard, like I was trying to figure out what they were hiding. That used to bother me. Now it felt like a compliment. Clara wasn't friendly, but she wasn't loyal to Faye either. And once I told her that Faye tried to have the lease transferred behind my back and was floating fake harassment claims, she rolled her eyes so hard I could hear it through the phone. I always told her she pushes things too far, she said. Look, I don't want to get involved. But if you're asking whether something was going on with Derek before that game night, yeah, way before. How long? There was a pause. 6 months. Maybe more. They stayed overnight after that company retreat. The one she told you was mandatory. I felt something behind my eyes flicker, but it didn't burn. Not anymore. I just nodded to myself and asked her for one thing. Anything. She could send me to confirm it. She hesitated, then said, I'll text you something I shouldn't still have. Don't tell her it came from me. It was a photo. From the hotel bar at that retreat. Faye and Derek, side by side. She was sitting on his lap. And she was wearing my hoodie. The one she told me she accidentally left in the Uber. I don't remember setting my phone down. I don't remember standing up. I just know I walked to the sink, turned on the tap, and stared at the water as it poured over my hands until they went numb. It wasn't the hoodie. It wasn't even the lie. It was the ease of it all. How quickly she shifted from one life to another. How little effort it took for her to rewrite the script. But that's when the clarity came. I didn't need to confront her anymore. She wasn't capable of shame. What I needed was resolution. Clean. Legal. Unshakable. I sent all the proof to Nathan. He called me back within minutes. Curtis, this is exactly what we needed. This changes everything. We filed immediately. The paperwork was precise, detailed, attached with evidence. We requested sole control of the lease, citing an attempted eviction without consent. We included the screenshots, the draft HR complaint, the text from her phone I had pulled off the old laptop. And yes, the photo Clara sent. No rage. No threats. Just facts. 3 days later, Faye finally texted me. Just one line. What did you do? I didn't answer. She tried calling. Blocked. Then she sent a longer message. One I stared at for a long time before deleting it. You had no right to involve my job. You're making this worse. I told you I wanted peace. I told you it was just a game. If you ruin everything, I'll never forgive you. That's when I knew she still didn't get it. She thought I wanted revenge, but all I wanted was peace. And now, for the first time in months, it was mine. The morning of the court hearing, it rained. Not the heavy, dramatic kind of rain you'd expect in some movie climax. Just light, steady drizzle. Quiet. Soaking the sidewalks, the courthouse steps, my jacket. I didn't bring an umbrella. I didn't rush. I walked through it like it didn't even touch me. Faye was already there when I arrived. She sat on the bench outside the courtroom, legs crossed, tapping her nails against her phone. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed like she still thought she could talk her way out of this. Like charm or guilt might work if she just aimed it right. But I didn't sit down. I didn't speak to her. I walked past her like she was just another stranger in the hall. And for the first time, I think she felt it. The weight of losing someone not in a fight, but in a silence that doesn't beg to be broken. Inside, the hearing was short. Professional. Almost boring, really. My lawyer laid it all out. Proof of the infidelity, the emotional manipulation, the lease attempt, the HR draft. Faye's side tried to pivot, but without her web of charm and confusion to spin in, their argument fell apart like wet paper. The judge ruled in my favor. Full control of the lease. No spousal support. Clean separation. And when it was over, when the papers were stamped and the courtroom emptied, I stood alone at the top of the courthouse steps and finally, breathed. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was relief. She tried texting again later that night. Said she missed me. That she didn't expect it to go this far. That she regretted the way she handled things. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. You don't reply to the ghost of who someone used to be. I started rebuilding. Not overnight, not perfectly, but with small steps. I repainted the living room. Took down the old photos. Donated half the furniture. Started going on walks in the evenings, just to clear my head. I read books again. Cooked for myself without feeling like I was being watched or judged. I even started laughing at things again, not out of politeness, but because I actually found them funny. And a few months later, something happened I never saw coming. At a friend's birthday dinner, I met someone. Her name's Elsie. She works in wildlife rehabilitation. She hates social media, has a ridiculous laugh, and listens more than she talks. I didn't tell her everything about what I went through. Not right away. But when I did, she didn't flinch. She didn't make it about her. She just held my hand and said, "You deserved better than someone who made love feel like punishment." And for the first time, I believed it. Now, the house feels like mine. The silence inside is peaceful, not heavy. The door stays locked, but not in fear. In protection. From games. From manipulation. From people who mistake kindness for weakness. She said it was just a stupid game. But I stopped playing. And that's how I finally won.